Republican nominee is the opioid of all opioids, an easy cure for what some believe is the solution to our myriad pains and problems, when in fact, with him, you end up re-enslaved with an even bigger problem, a worse affliction and addiction, a bigger delusion, James Baldwin would say, the author and finisher of our national existence, our national suicide, as Mr. Lincoln prophesies. Do not be seduced by easy equalization. There is nothing equal about this equation. We are at an existential crossroads in our political and civic lives. This is a choice that could not be clearer.
If you haven't sat and watched the whole thing and then rewound it and watched it again, do yourself a favor, treat yourself, and as soon as we get off the air, please do so. Everything that renowned historian Ken Burns had to say is a precious gift in this moment. So that was from a commencement address at Brandeis University on the 19th, about a week ago. It has exploded online since it was so eloquently and powerfully delivered last weekend. Burns explained why he sees right now this moment as a moment to suspend his long-standing commitment and attempt at neutrality. He implored those new graduates to remember that the most important political office is that of a private citizen. Vote, he said, urging them to deliver our nation from the other route, which threatens to engulf and destroy us. Joining us right now, the aforementioned Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and documentarian Ken Burns. I have your copy as you delivered it. I told you yesterday when I emailed you, I want to read the whole thing, and we'll try to do that. But first, tell me about this internal tussle about breaking your vow of neutrality.
I've been making films about American history. I have no interest in talking to one particular group or another. I'm interested in talking to all citizens. I have no interest in sort of polishing whatever political apple I might be attracted to at a particular time. I'm interested in telling true, honest, complicated stories that's unafraid, as I said in the speech, of controversy and tragedy, but equally drawn to those moments that suggest an abiding faith in the human spirit, and particularly what this American experiment has been about in good and bad ways. And every once in a while, though, you sort of feel in your gut, from having experienced all of this undertow, what the stakes are. And the stakes now are as high as they could possibly be. It's an existential moment, as I said, and it is something that we have to pay attention to. And unfortunately, we are so preoccupied with argument, or dialectically preoccupied with one thing or the other, and we forget that we have to step back a lot of times. The despots know this, right? They've always known this. They don't respect the judicial system, so they can play both sides of it. We're still bound by codes of honor and say we turn it into a handicap, and in so doing, we cede a little bit of power to those despots. Remember, when we started our country, we're the only place on earth that said you would be a citizen, not a subject. Didn't apply to everybody, not you, not black people, not recent immigrants, but it was the beginning. It was the foot in the door of this aspirational experiment that's been going on for 249 years. And we need to actually sort of remember what that's about. You know, Thomas Paine says this wonderful thing, that mankind discovers that the strength and power of despotism consists wholly in the fear of resisting it. And that's where I got called. I just finally went, I have to say something and speak directly. I still don't think I made a choice to be for one thing or the other. I was for us. That's what I was trying to do.
I mean, and I guess this is my question. The other route hasn't worked, and you seem to indict the binary, right? Red state, blue state. And it had an echo to President Obama's convention speech, right? We don't live in red America or blue America. There's one America. Was that on your mind, things that have broken through?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. To me, it's very spiritual, and it's ancient. It's Old Testament. It's Ecclesiastes, which I was doing, that we forget that when we engage in this argument, it's always one thing or another. And what we know from our lives, our relationships, our children, our work, is that things are really complicated. There's undertow, there's confusion, there's consternation that we have at opposites. And we have to honor that. And I think we go into this saying, oh, it's just an easy thing. I think we've failed as media, that we were, you know, 8 years ago, we had our cameras parked at the airplane hangar where he was going to arrive because we knew it was going to be a good train wreck. We knew it was going to be, if it bleeds, it leads. We knew it was going to be dramatic. And we've set up this kind of equivalency. So we have not invested the time in, say, for example, the accomplishments of the Biden administration. That is to say, given that equal time.
Totally.
You know, and we haven't said this may be the third most accomplished legislative accomplishments in 100 years. Obviously, FDR and LBJ are a little bit ahead, but this may be that. And so we have to, yes, and Obama is really strong at understanding that it's not just this argument. It's sometimes superseded by a reconciling force, which we have to bring at this moment.
Yeah.
This is not a question of Democrats or Republicans.
No.
This is the survival of our republic. If you like despots, dictators on day one, there's not a dictator who's ever given up power willingly.
Well, I mean, the first page of On Tyranny is about that idea, right? Tim Snyder writes about the authoritarian waiting for what you give up freely.
That's right.
And what felt so stirring, and I think the reason I mean, people are writing paragraphs on city streets with chalk. It is really, 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 really hard to give a commencement address right now. One, because young people are so much smarter than we are, and two, because they're feeling the pain of everything and the strife of everything going on. But you take that on, and it's not Israel or Palestine. It's not red or blue. It's not black or, I mean, just tell me what your advice is for people that want to get this right.
So this is it. And I realized people said, oh, you're not going to talk about Israel and Palestine. I said, of course I am. Of course, how can you possibly ignore this 800-pound gorilla in the room, just as you can ignore the presumptive, you know, 4-time indicted Republican
gorilla
nominee.
in the room.
Gorilla in the room. Exactly. And so what I was trying to say is that, look, you have 3 great religions. They're all children of Abraham. They all believe in the sanctity of human life. They all have a claim to this land, and they have turned it shamefully into a perpetual graveyard. And I just said, God does not distinguish between the dead. And then you take the onus, well, I'm for this. Okay. Nobody likes oppression in any form. Well, I'm for that. And you realize that we have to find a way to set aside these impulses. Oh, well, Joe Biden isn't handling it. Who has been able to handle this ever? And therefore, I'm not voting for it. I'm withholding my vote out of some sort of protest. And I said, look, however flawed you may feel this republic is right now, there's no choice if you like America. And I would say this to a hog farmer, a Republican hog farmer in Iowa, or a Montana, you know, wheat farmer, or a mechanic in Alabama. These are people that are invested in the American dream. And if you think despotism is going to stop with just 15 million immigrants that you're going to get rid of, or your political enemies, it doesn't end anywhere. And today there's an article about the Stasi files about to be even more stuff released, where so many hundreds of thousands of East German citizens were ratting on their neighbors. That's what you want?